In the summer of 2017, I received a notification from Duolingo. Luckily though, it was just an announcement that the Japanese course is now live on Duolingo. And I thought, I should start learning Russian again. I learned Russian in school for 6 years. I should be fluent by now, right? Wrong. I'm actually really far from being fluent. Mostly because learning in school was based on unbearable rote learning. I fucking hated it. We also had breaks from school, such as a 2-week break during Christmas and a 3-month-long break during summer. And obviously I didn't spend my sacred free time on something that gave me an existential crisis every time I thought about it. This experience made learning Russian, or foreign languages in general, a bad one. Not only was the learning painful, but it was relatively unfruitful. I'll probably make a separate video on that, so if you're interested, you might want to subscribe. I suppose I was curious to see how much of the 6 years of Russian had retained when I started Duolingo. What I discovered though, was that I was actually enjoying learning. Contrary to my previous experience, it was actually really fun, and I looked forward to doing my short Russian lessons each day. Not just that, but I actually started developing an interest towards the Russian language, perhaps even reaching fluency. I could explore all the levels that the Russian internet had to offer, and I'd actually be understanding what's going on. It sounded pretty exciting. I wasn't too serious with the learning though, but it was far better than nothing. In fact, I'd say it was better than the excruciating classes in school. Although, all nice things must come to an end, so after around 4 months of daily learning, I became disillusioned and I stopped learning. Right after I lost my Duolingo streak by being 13 seconds too late. I didn't learn for 5 months as I thought I had given up for good, but every time I saw a very random Russian sentence pop up, I felt like I'm missing out on the meditative journey and satisfaction that I could have received if I had kept on learning. Which is why, in September of 2018, I picked up learning Russian again. Even though I was learning Russian, I was actually curious about other languages as well, particularly Asian ones like Chinese, Japanese and Korean. Actually, in 2016 I even did start learning Korean. For 1 day. While I was learning Russian, my friend had actually been learning Japanese since the Duolingo course came out, so I had some insight into what learning Japanese would look like, and honestly, it didn't look too scary. But what really got me started though, was that I just randomly happened to make friends with a Japanese person online. So, on the 5th of October 2018, I started learning Japanese on Duolingo. Once again, just out of curiosity, with nothing too ambitious in mind. Naturally, the first thing I learned was hiragana, which only took around 2 or 3 days of very little effort. From there, I moved on to simpler sentences and grammar points, such as the wa, o, mo, to particles. The more I learned, the more my curiosity grew, so I started doing more research about learning Japanese, through which I discovered resources such as the Daikim's Guide to Learning Japanese. An excellent, completely free online textbook, into which I started peeking. And don't worry, it's nothing like one of those terrifying Russian textbooks I used in school. After a few weeks of just doing Duolingo, I also started using the core 2K 6K deck on Anki. And 5 days later, I decided that I'm just going to focus on learning Japanese. So, once again, I stopped learning Russian. If you're Russian, I'm so fucking sorry, dude. When I started learning Japanese, I didn't really have a specific goal in mind. Instead, I focused on building a habit, and I think that's important. You see, there was no finish line. All I had to do was just learn Japanese every day and that's it. Just like brushing teeth. You don't make a decision to do it, you just do it. That way, I'm less likely to feel like the goal I set is too far and too difficult to attain. However, I did have things I looked forward to, such as being fluent, which apparently is a very subjective term, so what I'm actually interested in is using Japanese on the internet and on digital media, such as browsing antiquated Japanese websites, chatting with natives about topics I enjoy, understanding song lyrics, playing Japanese games, and even online games such as League of Legends and Counter-Strike on the Japanese servers, as I'm kind of curious to see the difference between people compared to the European servers. If I can tolerate the 300 ping. Oh no. And even though I don't watch a lot of anime, not needing English subtitles will be appreciated.
Where are the subtitles?
As you can probably tell, that mostly requires being able to read and write Japanese digitally, at about 95 to 98% comprehension. What does that look like? Well, pause the video and read the following page at a natural speed without stopping. Did you do it? That was 98% reading comprehension. You may have noticed a few odd words here and there, but not too bad. Well, now let's see what 95% looks like. I will definitely have to start looking up words now, but it's still not too bad, it's pretty doable. But notice what happens when we go to 90% reading comprehension. As you can see, at this point you'd already be basically doing homework, and that's not the best experience now, is it? Oh yeah, by the way, here's 80%. So if I were to keep my sanity, which I'd prefer, I'll be aiming to achieve around 95 to 98% reading and writing comprehension. To strive towards that, I set up a routine. Every day I will have 10 new words from the core 2K 6K deck on Anki, 50 plus EXP on Duolingo, and 1 memorize lesson, which honestly I just stopped doing after like 2 weeks. That routine changed over time. For example, after around 3 months, I was starting to have too much trouble with taking 10 new words per day from the core 2K 6K deck. Anki started taking too long and words became too hard to memorize. So I decreased my number of daily cars down to 6, which seems to be the sweet spot for me as I still use it to this day. If I took 7 cards per day, it will definitely be too difficult. And if I took 5, I could definitely be doing more. Fast forward 160 days. I've finished gilding the entire Japanese tree on Duolingo. Was it worth it? Well, probably, but it wasn't the perfect course. Despite Duolingo being the biggest language learning platform, the course was still pretty much created by volunteers, whose work I'm very grateful for, by the way. But because of that, there wasn't enough manpower to fully feature it. So it was often lacking grammar explanations as well as the course being relatively short, only taking me around 40 hours to not just finish it, but also fully gild it. Duolingo also has technical issues for Japanese, such as using a text-to-speech engine, having poor kanji and furigana support and so on. Also, what is up with some tips and notes not showing up on the mobile app, but do on the website? This isn't even a bug, this is just a limitation of the mobile app. My favorite part is that when you're on your phone you can just visit Duolingo through a browser and the tips are there. But they're not there on the mobile app. Why? It honestly blows my mind how a company of such size can have problems like this. Well, ranting aside, it's not like I only had a negative experience with Duolingo. Starting out was actually really fun. And besides the technical issues, a lot of the complaints are for the old Japanese course, which they recently massively extended. When you're starting out with Japanese, I definitely recommend it, and it was good enough for me to keep doing it for over 500 days, which is also one of its big benefits. It helps you keep consistent. Their lessons are relatively short and fun, whilst being difficult enough for you to actually learn something. Everyone is different and learning languages is flexible. Therefore, different tools work for different people. Duolingo might not be the most efficient tool for learning Japanese, but the most important thing is, if it keeps you motivated to keep on learning, it's better than doing something that makes you hate the learning experience. After gilding the Japanese course, I didn't stop using Duolingo. Instead, I changed my course to the English course, designed for native Japanese people, which is actually pretty decent for learning Japanese. After a few months of doing that, I switched back to the actual Japanese course, as the course Reworked was finally officially released. Although this time I was doing only one lesson or 10 experience per day, as now I was focusing more on other learning sources. I think the Japanese Duolingo course deserves a more in-depth video of its own, especially the Reworked one. So if you're interested in a more in-depth review, you once again might want to subscribe. If Duolingo isn't your thing, there is another app I want to mention, LingoDeer, which I started using about 250 days into my Japanese journey. LingoDeer is like Duolingo, except it's way more optimized for learning Japanese. It has native Japanese audio,
昔、ここは危険な場所だった。
support for Duolingo Romanji, Hiragana and Kanji, hovering words is actually useful, and it has plenty of grammar explanations. They even have a built-in spaced repetition tool. My main problem with LingoDeer is that the free course is pretty short. It does include an additional paid course though, as well as some other content, such as a course for learning handwriting. I won't go too in depth about LingoDeer in this video, but the app is definitely worth checking out. Throughout this journey, I also read through the Daikim's Guide to Learning Japanese. That was it, I just read through it, so I pretty much forgot everything right after. But the idea behind it was that I remember enough to be able to look up the information about concepts that might have appeared in the book, which actually turned out to be true. Later on, I also made an Anki deck for the most essential conjugations, such as the te, past, passive, causative and volitional forms, some including their negative and polite versions. At first, I had a rough time with them, but soon it started clicking, and now I know those conjugations in a heartbeat. It made me realize that even annoying concepts such as those are pretty easy to learn with spaced repetition. Man, if I only had been aware of SRS back when I was learning Russian in school. Also, about 455 days into the journey, I finally started using an Anki deck with over 800 cards made from Daikim's content, which, when used alongside the book, makes memorizing the concepts covered a breeze. I'll link both decks in the description. My daily routine had changes in it quite often. Apps and Anki decks came and went. But one thing stayed constant, the usefulness of the core 2K 6K words deck. This deck is the squat and deadlift of learning Japanese. For me, it's a must-have. Not only are you learning vocabulary, but also sentences, listening and pitch accents.
積極的。姉は何に対しても積極的です。
It has so much content that it's most likely going to take you years before you finish it. It took me 280 days, day 298 of learning Japanese, to finally see all the core 2000 words, which is only 1/3 of the entire deck. The last word was soap, by the way. If it weren't for this deck, my Japanese, especially my vocabulary, would be nowhere near the level it is right now. Honestly, I'm not even sure if I had kept on learning without it. Fast forward to day 466. I finally passed the halfway mark of 3000 out of 6000 cards taken. And as of writing this video, 580 days in, I have only about 2300 words to go, which will take me another 400 days. But honestly, I don't mind. I really like using this deck. It can definitely get annoying and hard at times, and even after I finish this deck, I still need to be reviewing the cards in order to not forget them. But at that point, it will start becoming much easier, as I won't constantly be taking new words every day. And I really look forward to that. You could even call it one of my long short-term goals. Once I finish this deck, instead of just grinding vocabulary, I will start actually using it. And what better way to do that than immersion?
誰かが忍び寄れば匂いでわかる。多分な。
You've probably heard of learning by immersion, the modern and efficient approach for language acquisition. Immersion can be achieved as simply as changing the language of a game you're playing. And chances are, if English isn't your first language, you most likely learned most of it through immersion. Why not apply the same to Japanese? You can find Japanese content everywhere, in video games, music, movies, TV shows, and so on. Not to mention that on the internet you can connect with Japanese people through social media, chat rooms, language learning services, etc. Immersion-based learning is even widely recommended by YouTubers, for example by Matt vs Japan in their Mass Immersion Approach video, as well as in the video by What I've Learned about input-based learning methods. So why was I neglecting this part? Well, I wasn't neglecting it completely. I did get exposure to Japanese through things I mentioned earlier. Video games, a few anime series, Discord servers, and so on. It wasn't too rare that I'd browse Japanese content on the internet, for example on YouTube and Twitch. My Twitter feed ended up being a tool for learning, as it became almost exclusively Japanese. But unfortunately, on most days I just finished my Anki and Duolingo lessons and that's it. My problem was that I only had a limited time budget for learning Japanese, which made spending hours being immersed difficult. Also, in my theory, the value of time spent being immersed is linked to your current level. The better you get, the more valuable it becomes. For example, if you're still a beginner, the amount you'll actually learn from 10 hours of binge watching Japanese shows is low compared to what you can achieve with 10 hours of dedicated study. Its efficiency can vary depending on what your goals are. Obviously, it becomes more valuable if you're more interested in listening comprehension than reading comprehension. But what about reading comprehension? There are problems with immersing yourself in reading when you're basically illiterate. Immersion is supposed to be fun and sustainable, but as a beginner, reading content that you're interested in might be downright impossibly difficult, which I demonstrated earlier in the video with the reading comprehension examples. Although immersive input doesn't have to be fully comprehensible, when it comes to text that you lack the vocabulary to read, you'll end up spending most of your time looking up words instead of actually reading. Although there is content that's specifically designed to be at a lower level, they might not interest you enough to make them worthwhile. So I figured that I'd prefer to be patient and directly learn vocabulary until I reach a certain point where reading will become more enjoyable. As mentioned earlier, once I finish the Core 2K6K deck, I'll be heavily shifting my focus on immersion-based input and output. Also, I found out that there is actually a video by Matt vs Japan which is quite related to this.
Probably a lot of you have experienced that if you just look up a word in the dictionary and you don't have some sort of system to help you review it, then a lot of times you just forget it 10 seconds later, right? It just goes in one ear out the other, and so you come across the same word an hour later and completely have forgotten that you ever looked it up. Creating a solid mental dictionary entry in your brain and letting your brain know that this word exists is actually more than half of the work of fully acquiring that word. The first main reason why having a mental dictionary entry for a word is so valuable is because it makes it much more likely that your brain is going to be able to pick that word out and notice that word whenever you are immersing in your target language. The more mental dictionary entries you have in your brain, then the more you're going to be able to take away and acquire from each minute you spend immersing. And this is extremely important because in order to make fast progress at acquiring a language, you have to spend a huge amount of hours immersing yourself in that language each week. And you're simply just not going to put in the time immersing if the content that you're immersing yourself with isn't interesting and compelling to you. And I really think that it's the SRS allowing us to quickly and efficiently build up a database of mental dictionary entries combined with the comprehensibility boost we get from memorizing lots of basic word meanings, which really make jumping into authentic native material from the start a truly viable option. Without these benefits from the SRS, authentic content would probably just be too incomprehensible to efficiently learn from towards the beginning of the learning process.
It's a really good video. I recommend you go watch the whole thing later on. Well, what is my Japanese level at then? Did I reach fluency after 600 days of learning around an hour every day? Absolutely not. Very far from it. But did I reach my goal of 95 to 98% reading comprehension? Not really, no. It might sound disappointing, but learning Japanese takes a very long time. It was never my expectation to reach my goals in merely 600 days. It might seem like a long time, but in reality it hasn't even been 2 years. There are languages where you can reach fluency in around that amount of time, but Japanese is not one of them. If you're learning Japanese, you have probably looked up how long does it take to get fluent in Japanese. Thanks Google. And you have probably seen a consensus of it taking about 3 years before things start to truly click, and around 5 to 10 years for reaching fluency. The answers may vary, but they all indicate one thing, that it's going to take a very fucking long time. Regardless, what is my Japanese level at then? Honestly, I'm not sure. I haven't put it to the test for a while, so let's find out. In order to test my Japanese proficiency, I'll set up a series of tests, which should cover different areas of skills, such as reading, writing, listening, speaking skills, as well as handwriting. I'll start out with more formal material, such as JLPT stuff, and afterwards, I'll put my skills to the test on more realistic, real-world use case scenarios, such as random stuff on the internet, media, actual one-on-one conversations, and so on. Well, let's start with the sample JLPT questions from the official JLPT website. Now obviously it's not going to be a completely accurate portrayal of taking a real JLPT test, but I feel like it's a good demonstration for the video. I already did the N4 test a long time ago, so I feel like I should try N3 now. So, let's begin. It like kinda makes sense, but I don't really think it's perfectly fitting. Ah, it was the fucking... Oh, motherfucker. I think it's number 4. Oh, it was, bro. And there you go. And there you go. Okay, so it's 3 and 6. Yes. Yep. There you go. It's not number 1. I think it's number 2. Hey.
これから頑張ればいいよ。
Yeah, it's number 3. And there you go. All questions answered. Honestly, I think the ones I got wrong were really on the edge between choosing the correct answer and wrong answer. If I was just a little bit better, or I had just spent a little bit more time on trying to understand and consider these options, I think I would have gotten all answers correct actually. Okay, so those were some N3 example questions. I can say that it's not perfectly easy yet, as it took me quite a while. But it wasn't too uncomfortable. Although I assume I had around 95 to 98% comprehension in these questions, it really goes to show what a difference the missing 2 to 5% can make between getting the answer right or wrong. Well, moving on. Let's look for some WoW commentary. Well, that's not Japanese. Let's see. Let's see this one. This video is perfectly subjective to the individual. If you're a beginner and you choose to play classic, then you can consult this video. I'm not really sure what this word here is. I guess he made this video because there isn't a lot of Japanese information about this game. So let's see.
こんにちは。今日はゲームを始める方から一番質問が多い。どの
ゆっくり解説 videos. I don't really like those myself, those text-to-speech engines, like that specific one voice. It's really popular in Japan though. This comment says, it was interesting. I guess this means that the person was playing during the Mist of Pandaria's times and now this video is making him excited again. Holy shit, this is some spooky ass kanji right here. Oh okay, hesitation. This person is a little hesitant to play MMORPGs that were made overseas, but he thinks he's going to start tomorrow. I think this what it says is that if you like the story, then it's a really interesting game. But if the English atmosphere is okay, from what I understand. ストーリーだけ気にしなければ面白いゲームです。英語はまあ不人気で大丈夫。I wonder if there are any Python tutorials. 基本 which is foundation. Okay, I think Toa is basically like defining like X is Y. Environment, kankyo. I'm not sure what the second word is. Constructing the foundation for the program. Execution? Hensu. I'm not sure what that is, but I can guess what it is. It's like changing number. Oh, I looked it up. It means variable. Yeah, that makes sense. Data gata. I guess that's data types. Risto. Lists. Not really sure what this is. Ensanshi. Okay, it means operator. First one is joken, which is condition. I'm not sure what the other one is. Yeah, it's conditionals. Kurikaeshi is the next section, so I assume it's like for loops and stuff. Yeah, there you go. If it's the first time you're learning Python, or if you already have had some practice with Python, it's an optimal way to learn Python. Benkyū sorogata wa saiteki desu. Chiko shoukai. This is a self-introduction. Genzai. Freelancer. He's currently a freelancer. His marketing relations, I guess this is like artificial intelligence. I'm not really sure what this means. Most easy to understand. I can understand all the words in here, but it's kind of hard to comprehend what he exactly means because of this part here. Ichiban saisho ni yaru yatsu. It's one of those cases where you understand all the words but not really understand what they mean altogether. But I think I get the semantics of it. I just don't know how to translate this. I am most grateful. I love Python. This person wants the music to be a bit less, so I assume it's he wants it to be a bit quieter. Advice wa arigatou gozaimasu. Thank you for the advice. Lately I have become more conscious of it, so I should fix it. If there's anything else, then please tell me. Lately, in the morning at 4 o'clock, I'm not sure what this means. Let's look it up. It's like on the riverside, and yesterday it rained, so in the center of the road there was a turtle. I'm not really sure what this exactly means. Is it something like, what a great find, and I think the turtle has some talent. Alright, time for listening. Let's try this video first.
はじめまして、柴崎です。
Nice to meet you. I am Shibasaki.
水彩チャンネルへようこそ。
Welcome to the watercoloring channel.
この動画では
In this video...
本格的な透明水彩をできるだけ
Oh crap, I didn't really understand that.
可能な限り分かりやすく
Okay, わかりやすく is probably that it's easy to understand. Okay, honestly I can say that this is too hard for me. If I was looking at subtitles whilst listening, it would be a lot easier. But when it comes to understanding native speech just by listening, it gets a lot harder for me, because I haven't had enough listening immersion. Luckily though, there is content which is more suitable for beginners, such as podcast on nihongokonteppei.com. Okay, let's see this one. It's about moving.
はい、皆さんこんにちは。
Hi everyone.
元気ですか？
Are you
僕
well?
は元気ですよ。
I am well.
今日は引っ越しについて話したいと思います。
Today I want to talk about moving.
家から家にね、引っ越す。
From a house to a house.
例えば
For
東京
example.
からロンドンに引っ越したり、
From Tokyo to London, for example.
ニューヨークからシアトルに引っ越したり。
For example, moving from New York to Seattle.
皆さんは引っ越しをたくさんしたことがありますか？
Has everyone done a lot of moving?
僕は引っ越しを本当にたくさんしました。
I have done a lot of moving.
16回ですね。
He has moved 16 times.
僕は20年間で16回引っ越しをしてます。
In 20 years.
僕は去年も2回引っ越しをしました。
He moved 2 times last year.
去年はスペインから東京に戻ってきて、
He returned from Spain to Tokyo.
そしてもう1回引っ越しました。東京から東京に。
Then he moved from Tokyo to Tokyo. Again, I assume like into another house.
皆さんは引っ越しが好きですか？
Do you people like moving?
僕はね、引っ越しが好きじゃないですね。
He does not like moving.
大学に入るために東京に来ました。
Because he wanted to enter a university, so he came to Tokyo. Okay, that's enough of listening for now. I can say that I definitely need to improve my listening skills, but basic listening isn't that much of a problem so far. Alright, time for handwriting. I'll try to fill this sheet of hiragana in from memory. Okay, I give up. I knew this would happen. As I haven't really practiced handwriting yet, my ability to recall hiragana is not good enough for handwriting. It's pretty interesting considering that I have no problems whatsoever when it comes to hiragana recognition. The takeaway here is that if you care about handwriting, you better practice it right away, as it probably won't come on its own so easily. Alright, what about output? Well, I can say that my writing ability isn't that great. When I try to compose non-basic sentences in Japanese, it often comes out as unnatural and might contain grammatical errors. I am actually not surprised over this at all. As compared to input, I've barely done any output whatsoever, especially spoken. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing though, as unlike with handwriting, the better you get with input, your output automatically improves alongside. But of course, practice makes perfect, especially for a spoken output. I'm not going to be focusing on output just yet. In fact, early output can lead to learning bad habits, so I'd rather do that later on. And with all that, all the trials of proving my embarrassing weeaboo capacity have been finalized. While knowing that I still have more than half the journey ahead of me, I am actually very happy with how far I've come so far, and I thank you for coming along with me on the ride. The ride which is not over yet. No, not at all. Yes, this fucking long ass video, which was originally designed to be a progress video for 500 days, went past the deadline and pivoted to 600, which by now it has also surpassed. This video is just the beginning. I have all kinds of shit planned for this channel. It's content that you do not want to miss out on. Or at least I don't want you to miss out on. Because I did not attain the mental composure of a Buddhist monk performing self-mummification in order to sit through over 50 Sony Vegas crashes just so a few friends can see my videos. And no, I'm not exaggerating. My Sony Vegas did indeed crash more than the Dow Jones just 4 months ago. And that doesn't even account for the fact that I had to upgrade my RAM just so I can render the damn video. So please, have some pity and subscribe, so I can stop begging like a child for RuneScape membership. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.